tonight we're traveling back, way back, to the year 100 AD, right in the heart of the Roman Empire. The Colosseum stands tall, the aqueducts flow, and the mighty legions guard the borders of the known world. Rome, they say, is eternal, the pinnacle of civilization, the greatest empire ever built. But here's what they don't tell you in history class. Here's what Hollywood conveniently leaves out of every sword and sandals epic. Ancient Rome, for the average person, was absolutely brutal. It was filthy, dangerous, disease-ridden, and frankly, horrifying by modern standards. Tonight, we're spending 24 hours in ancient Rome, not as a senator in a marble villa, not as a gladiator in the arena, but as an ordinary person living in a cramped apartment, working a backbreaking job, and just trying to survive another day in the greatest city on earth. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying this journey into the past, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. And drop a comment telling me if you think you could have survived in ancient Rome. Trust me, by the end of this, your answer might surprise you. Now, let's step through time. The year is 100 AD. Emperor Trajan rules from the Palatine Hill. The empire stretches from Britain to Mesopotamia. And you're about to discover that all that glory came at a price most Romans paid every single day. Welcome to Rome. Try not to step in anything. Chapter 1. Waking up in an insula. The first thing you notice when you wake up in ancient Rome isn't the glorious sunshine streaming through elegant windows. It's the noise, the deafening, never-ending noise. You're lying on a thin straw mattress in a cramped room on the 4th floor of an insula, a Roman apartment building. These structures are the ancient equivalent of tenement housing, and they're everywhere in Rome. The city is packed with over 1 million people, and most of them live like this. Your room is tiny, maybe 8 feet by 10 feet. You share it with your spouse and 2 children. There's no furniture except for a wooden chest containing all your possessions and a small clay lamp for light. The walls are thin, so thin you can hear every word your neighbors say, every argument, every crying baby, every intimate moment. Privacy doesn't exist here. The building itself is a disaster waiting to happen. It's 7 stories tall, constructed cheaply and quickly by a landlord who cares more about rent collection than safety. The upper floors, where you live because rent is cheaper, are built with wood and mud brick. Fire is a constant threat. Collapse is even more common. Just last month, the Insula 2 streets over-pancaked in the middle of the night, killing everyone inside. The city authorities shrugged. The landlord faced no consequences. New tenants moved into the surviving rooms within a week. Life in Rome goes on. As you lie there, feeling the rough straw poking through your threadbare blanket, you can hear the city waking up around you. Merchants are already shouting in the streets below. Cart wheels rumble over cobblestones, despite the law that's supposed to ban wheeled traffic during the day. Nobody really enforces it. Someone is emptying a chamber pot out a window. You hear the splash and the angry yell of whoever was walking underneath. The smell hits you next. Your building has no running water on the upper floors. No bathroom. No kitchen. The scent of human waste, cooking smoke from street vendors, rotting garbage, and a million unwashed bodies creates a pungent mixture that you've learned to breathe through. You pull yourself up, feeling the aches in your back from another night on that miserable mattress. Your youngest child is coughing again, that wet, rattling cough that's been going around the neighborhood. Half the kids in your Insula have it. Some don't recover. There's a bucket in the corner that serves as your family's toilet during the night. It needs to be emptied, which means carrying it down 4 flights of narrow, dark stairs and dumping it into the communal cesspit in the alley. That's if you're responsible. Many of your neighbors just toss it out the window and hope for the best. The wooden stairs creak ominously as people start their morning routines. These stairs have no railings, and the stairwell has no windows. In the darkness, people regularly fall to their deaths. Just 2 weeks ago, old Marcus from the 6th floor missed a step and broke his neck. His body lay in the stairwell for hours before anyone bothered to move it. You don't have a kitchen, so there's no morning fire to warm the room. In winter, the cold is brutal. In summer, the heat is suffocating. Right now, in early morning, the temperature is tolerable, but you know by noon the sun will turn your top floor room into an oven. This is home. This is where most Romans live, not in the marble villas and elegant domus homes you see in movies. Those belong to the rich, maybe 5% of the population. Everyone else, the shopkeepers, the laborers, the craftsmen, the poor, cram into these unstable, uncomfortable, dangerous buildings. You swing your legs off the mattress, your feet touching the packed earth floor. Another day in the eternal city has begun. Lucky you. Chapter 2. The morning routine, or lack thereof. Here's something that might shock you. Ancient Romans didn't really have a morning routine. At least, not the way we think of it. There's no shower, no toothbrush, no fresh change of clothes. Personal hygiene, as we understand it, is almost non-existent for ordinary people. You sleep in the same tunic you wore yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. In fact, you own exactly 2 tunics, the one you're wearing, and 1 spare that's currently being worn by your spouse. Laundry is an expensive, infrequent event. Most people wash their clothes a few times a year at most. The tunic itself is a simple garment, basically a long shirt made of rough wool or cheap linen. It's itchy, stained with sweat and dirt, and it smells. You smell. Everyone smells. There's no deodorant, no cologne strong enough to mask body odor, no daily bathing. The concept of smelling fresh is completely foreign. Your hair is another problem. You haven't washed it in weeks. It's greasy, tangled, and probably hosting a colony of lice. Head lice are so common in Rome that they're just accepted as part of life. Rich people have slaves to pick lice out of their hair. You have to do it yourself, which you do occasionally, crushing the bugs between your fingernails while your children squirm. Teeth, let's not even go there. You own no toothbrush. You've never heard of toothpaste. The best you can do is occasionally rub your teeth with a piece of cloth, maybe dipped in vinegar or salt if you're feeling fancy. Most adults your age already have multiple missing teeth. Dental abscesses are common and often fatal. That throbbing pain in your back molar, you just have to live with it. There are no dentists, no pain relief, no solutions. Pain is just part of existence. You splash some water on your face from a small clay jar, water you carried up 4 flights of stairs yesterday from the public fountain 2 streets away. It's not clean water. Rome's famous aqueducts bring water into the city, but by the time it reaches the public fountains, it's been sitting in lead pipes and open channels, collecting all sorts of contamination. But it's all you have. There's no soap. Soap exists, but it's expensive and mostly used for laundry, not bathing. You just use water and your hands, rubbing away the worst of yesterday's dirt. Your spouse is awake now, tending to the children. The youngest is still coughing. You share a worried glance. Medicine is expensive, and most of it doesn't work anyway. Roman doctors are more likely to kill you than cure you, with their theories about balancing humors and their enthusiasm for bloodletting. You need to urinate. The bucket in the corner is already full from last night. You could use it anyway, but you decide to head downstairs to the public latrine instead. It's a few blocks away, but at least then you won't have to carry a heavier bucket down those treacherous stairs. Grabbing your worn sandals, leather strips wrapped around a wooden sole, you prepare to face the day. Your feet are calloused and tough. They have to be. These sandals provide minimal protection, and the streets of Rome are hazardous. No mirror exists to check your appearance. You have no idea what you look like, and frankly, you don't care. Vanity is a luxury for the rich. You're just trying to survive. As you head toward the door, you wrap a threadbare cloak around your shoulders. The morning is chilly, and later it might rain. This cloak is your only protection against the elements: your coat, your blanket, your shelter when needed. You take one last look at your family huddled in this tiny room. Your spouse's eyes meet yours. There's exhaustion there, the same exhaustion you feel. The same worry about money, about food, about disease, about the fragility of life in Rome. But there's also determination. You're survivors. You've made it this far. You step out into the narrow, dark hallway of the Insula, joining the stream of neighbors heading downstairs to begin another day in the greatest city in the world. Chapter 3: Breakfast of Disappointment. Let's talk about breakfast in ancient Rome, or rather, the lack of it. Because for most Romans, breakfast isn't a meal, it's a concept they barely recognize. If you're lucky and have a few copper coins, you might grab something from a street vendor on your way to work. These vendors set up at dawn, selling simple, cheap food to workers heading to their jobs. The options are limited and deeply disappointing by modern standards. The most common breakfast is a piece of stale bread, maybe dipped in cheap wine or water to soften it. That's it, just bread. The wine isn't the pleasant beverage you're imagining. It's thin, sour, and often watered down so much it barely qualifies as wine at all. But it makes the dry bread easier to swallow, so you choke it down. If you've got a bit more money, you might buy a small portion of porridge called pools. It's made from grain, usually barley or wheat, boiled in water until it forms a thick, gluey paste. No sugar, no honey, no flavoring of any kind unless you count a pinch of salt. It's bland, heavy, and filling in the most utilitarian sense. You're not eating for pleasure, you're eating for fuel. Some vendors sell small cakes or biscuits, but these are luxury items beyond your budget. You watch wealthier Romans purchase them without a second thought, and your stomach growls in envy. The truly desperate, and you've been there, sometimes don't eat breakfast at all. They just wait until the midday meal, nursing hunger pangs and trying to ignore the weakness in their limbs. Missing meals is common for the poor. When money is tight, you feed your children first and hope you can make it through the day on willpower. There's no coffee to wake you up, no tea. The stimulant beverages that modern people rely on don't exist. Romans drink water, wine, or occasionally pasca, a mixture of water and sour wine that's the beverage of soldiers and laborers. It tastes like vinegar and regret. As you stand at the vendor's stall, bread in hand, you look around at your fellow Romans breaking their fast. A construction worker tears into his loaf with blackened hands, dirt under every fingernail. A shopkeeper gulps down porridge while simultaneously arguing with a customer. A young mother feeds scraps to her children while eating nothing herself. Nobody is sitting down for this meal. There are no cozy breakfast nooks, no family tables. You eat standing up quickly, often while walking to your next destination. Breakfast is a transaction, not an experience. The bread itself is another disappointment. It's coarse, made from cheap grain that's often partially spoiled or cut with sawdust to stretch supplies. Weevils are common. You've learned to just eat around them or pretend they're extra protein. Complaining won't change anything. Romans don't have breakfast as morning bonding time. They don't have elaborate morning meals. The concept of brunch would be utterly alien. Food is about survival, about getting enough calories to work another day. That's all. As you finish your meager bread, your stomach is still rumbling. It won't be satisfied until the main meal much later in the day if you can afford one. But this is what you have, so you swallow the last dry bite and prepare to start work. The sun is climbing higher. The streets are filling with people. Another day of labor awaits, and you've barely consumed enough food to sustain a child, let alone a working adult. Welcome to breakfast. try not to think about what you're missing. Chapter 4, the public latrine experience. All right, we need to talk about Roman toilets. Because this is where the glamorous image of ancient Rome really goes down the drain, literally. You've been holding it since you woke up, and now you can't wait any longer. You head to the nearest public latrine, a large communal facility that serves your neighborhood. Romans are actually proud of these structures, considering them a sign of civilization and urban sophistication. You're about to discover why that's hilarious. You walk into a large room with benches lining the walls. But these aren't benches for sitting. Well, they are, but not in the way you'd hope. Cut into the stone benches are holes, spaced about a foot apart. These are the toilets, all of them, in one open room. There are no stalls, no dividers, no doors, no privacy whatsoever. You sit down right next to strangers, literally shoulder to shoulder, and do your business while making small talk. Because yes, Romans chat while defecating. They discuss politics, trade gossip, make business deals, all while sitting on adjacent toilet holes. You take your spot between a baker and a sandal maker. They're already deep in conversation about grain prices. You nod a greeting and try to focus on the task at hand. Beneath the bench, there's a channel of flowing water, part of Rome's famous sewer system, the Cloaca Maxima. This water is supposed to carry waste away. The problem, it's not flowing very fast, and it's not very deep. So waste tends to accumulate, creating a horrific smell that burns your nostrils and makes your eyes water. The Romans have tried to solve the smell problem by having slaves burn incense in the latrines. It doesn't help. It just creates a nauseating combination of flowery scent and human waste that somehow makes everything worse. Now comes the truly disturbing part, cleaning yourself. There's no toilet paper. Instead, there's a communal sponge on a stick called a tersorium. Yes, communal. One sponge, shared by everyone. You reach for the tersorium, which is sitting in a bucket of salt water or vinegar. The water is supposed to clean the sponge between uses. It doesn't. The sponge is perpetually dirty, carrying bacteria and parasites from every person who's used it before you. Intestinal diseases spread like wildfire through these latrines. You do what you have to do and try not to think about it too hard. Romans have been doing this for generations. It's normal. It's civilized. It's absolutely revolting by any modern standard. The baker next to you lets out a satisfied sigh and stands up, adjusting his tunic. He wishes you a good day and leaves without washing his hands, because there's no hand-washing station. That's not a thing. He's going back to baking bread that people will eat with those hands. This is why intestinal diseases are rampant in Rome. This is why life expectancy is shockingly low. But nobody makes the connection between hygiene and disease. The germ theory of illness won't be discovered for another 18 centuries. As you finish your business and stand up, you something moving in the waste channel below. Rats. Huge rats, feeding on the waste, living in the sewers. Sometimes they climb up through the toilet holes and bite people. It's a known hazard. There are documented cases of Romans being seriously injured by rats attacking them from below while they sat on the latrine. You adjust your tunic and head for the exit, passing the small shrine to Fortuna, the goddess of luck, that stands near the door. Many Romans make a quick prayer before leaving the latrine, asking for protection from disease and sewer rats. You mutter a quick plea yourself. It can't hurt. Outside, you breathe in the relatively fresher air of the Roman street. And yes, I said relatively, because the streets themselves are far from clean, as you're about to discover. The public latrine experience is over. You've survived another round of Roman sanitation. Your ancestors would be horrified. Your descendants will never believe this was real. But in Rome, this is just another morning routine. Chapter 5. Work until you drop. The sun is climbing higher, and it's time for work. And let me be clear, work in ancient Rome isn't a 9-to-5 job with coffee breaks and weekends. It's brutal, dangerous, and all-consuming. Most Romans work 6 days a week, from dawn until dusk. That's roughly 12 to 14 hours of labor, depending on the season. There are no labor laws, no workplace safety regulations, no overtime pay. You work until the job is done, or until you physically can't continue. Let's say you're a construction worker, one of the most common jobs in Rome. The city is constantly building new temples, new public buildings, new insulae. There's always work, which is both a blessing and a curse. You arrive at the construction site as the sun fully rises. The foreman, a grizzled man with a permanent scowl, is already shouting orders. There's no morning briefing, no safety meeting. You just grab your tools and start working. Your job today is moving stones. Large, heavy stones that will form part of a new apartment building. There are no cranes, no pulleys, no machinery to help. Just your back, your muscles, and a whole lot of sweat. You and a dozen other workers lift a stone block that weighs several hundred pounds. Someone counts to 3. You lift. Your back screams in protest. Your hands, already calloused and scarred from previous work, grip the rough stone. You shuffle forward, step by agonizing step, until the stone is in position. Then you do it again, and again, and again, for hours. There are no breaks, except when the foreman decides to allow them. Water is available from a communal bucket that everyone drinks from the same bucket, the same ladle. Diseases spread easily, but nobody has a choice. It's drink the communal water or collapse from dehydration. The risk of injury is constant. Last month, a rope snapped and a stone fell, crushing a worker's leg. He screamed for hours before finally passing out from the pain. A doctor eventually arrived, took one look, and amputated the leg with a saw and no anesthesia. The worker died 3 days later from infection. His family received no compensation. A new worker filled his position the next day. You've seen men fall from scaffolding, breaking bones, or dying on impact. You've watched workers get caught under falling materials. Burns from hot metal, cuts from sharp tools, hernias from lifting too much weight. These are common, expected hazards. There's no workers' compensation, no medical leave, no safety equipment. If you get injured, you don't work. If you don't work, you don't eat. So you push through pain, ignore injuries, and pray you make it to the end of the day intact. The foreman doesn't care about your well-being. He cares about getting the job done on time. If you're too slow, he'll dock your pay. If you complain, you'll be replaced. There are always more desperate people willing to take your job. Around midday, work pauses briefly. The heat is becoming unbearable. Romans don't typically work during the hottest part of the day. Even slave drivers recognize that workers who die of heat stroke aren't useful. This is your chance to eat. You sit in whatever shade you can find and pull out your lunch. More bread, maybe with some olive oil if you're lucky. Perhaps a few olives or a small piece of cheese. Some workers have brought dried fish. The smell of sweat, dust, and food mingles in the hot air. Conversations are sparse. Everyone's too tired. You eat mechanically, knowing that soon you'll be back to hauling stones. Your body aches. Your hands are bleeding from rough stone and rope burns. Your back feels like it might give out at any moment, but you can't complain. This is considered decent work. You're being paid. Some Romans have it worse, much worse. Slaves work even longer hours with no pay at all. Beggars starve in the streets. At least you have a job. After the brief rest, work resumes. The afternoon is a blur of strain and sweat. The sun beats down mercilessly. One worker vomits from heat exhaustion. Another passes out and is dragged to the shade. The work continues. As the sun finally begins to set, the foreman calls an end to the day. You're paid in small copper coins, barely enough to buy food for your family. Nothing left over for savings or emergencies. You clutch the coins tightly, knowing they represent your family's survival for another day. Your body is wrecked. Every muscle aches. Your hands are torn and bleeding. You're covered in dust and sweat. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. This is work in ancient Rome. Brutal, relentless, crushing. You work until your body breaks because there's no other option. There's no retirement, no pension, no safety net. You work until you physically can't anymore, and then you become one of the beggars you walk past every day. The lucky ones die quickly. The unlucky ones linger, broken and poor, until disease or starvation finally ends their suffering. Welcome to the Roman workforce. Glory to the empire. Chapter 6. The streets of Filth. As you make your way home through Rome's streets, you're confronted with a reality that movies conveniently ignore. Ancient Rome is absolutely disgusting. The streets are narrow, crowded, and covered in filth. Garbage is everywhere. Romans simply throw their trash out their windows or doors, letting it pile up in the streets. Rotting food, broken pottery, animal bones, and unidentifiable waste create mountains of refuse in every alley. The city does employ people to clean the streets, but they can't keep up. For every cart of garbage removed, 10 more piles appear. The heat accelerates decomposition, creating a smell so powerful it's almost visible. You've lived here long enough that you barely notice anymore, but visitors to Rome often gag when they first arrive. Human waste is another major problem. Remember those chamber pots people empty from their windows. They don't always yell a warning first. Walking down a Roman street means constantly watching the upper windows, ready to dodge at any moment. Getting doused with someone's urine or feces is a real hazard. It happens to someone every day. The streets themselves are paved with stones, which sounds impressive until you realize what's between those stones. Mud, waste, rotting organic matter, and standing water that serves as a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Disease-carrying insects are everywhere. Malaria is common. You probably have it yourself. Recurring fevers that come and go throughout your life. Animals add to the chaos. Pigs, dogs, and chickens roam freely through the streets, eating garbage and adding their own waste to the mix. Dead animals, rats, cats, dogs lie where they died until someone bothers to move them, which might take days. The smell of death and decay is just part of the urban atmosphere. Butcher shops are particularly horrific. They're open-air operations where animals are slaughtered right on the street. Blood runs in the gutters. Organs and unwanted parts are tossed aside for stray animals or simply left to rot. Flies swarm in black clouds. The stench is overwhelming. The famous Roman sewers, the Cloaca Maxima, do exist, but they only serve a small portion of the city, primarily public buildings and the homes of the wealthy. Your insula isn't connected to the sewers. Your waste goes into a cesspit or gets thrown into the street. That's life for the majority of Romans. Street crime is rampant, especially as evening approaches. There's no street lighting except for the occasional torch outside a tavern or wealthy home. Most of the city descends into complete darkness after sunset. Muggers, pickpockets, and violent gangs on the night. The urban cohorts, basically police, are few in number and mostly concerned with protecting the wealthy. You walk quickly, keeping your head down, clutching your small bag of coins. You've learned which streets to avoid, which corners are claimed by which gangs. Last year, your neighbor was stabbed for his sandals. Sandals. He died in the street, and his body wasn't discovered until morning. Nobody was ever caught. You pass a tavern where drunk men are already shouting and fighting in the doorway. Public drunkenness is epidemic in Rome. Cheap wine flows freely, and many Romans drink to escape the misery of their daily existence. Fights break out constantly. Stabbings are common. The tavern owner doesn't intervene. He's learned that breaking up fights is bad for business. A beggar calls out to you, asking for coins. He's missing both legs, probably from an accident or disease. He drags himself along the ground using his hands. There are hundreds like him throughout Rome, casualties of the empire's brutal indifference to the poor and disabled. You have no coins to spare, so you keep walking. His curses follow you down the street. Children play in the filth, seemingly unbothered by the waste around them. They're barefoot, dressed in rags, their faces smudged with dirt. Many are orphans. Rome has no social services, no orphanages, no safety net. Children whose parents die often end up on the streets, begging or stealing to survive. If they're lucky, they're taken in by relatives or sold into slavery. If they're unlucky, they simply die. You finally reach your Insula as the sun begins to set. You've navigated Rome's streets successfully for another day. You haven't been robbed, attacked, or doused with waste. That counts as a victory. Climbing those 4 flights of creaky stairs has never felt so exhausting. Your legs burn, your back aches, but you're home. Your family is waiting. And somehow, against all odds, you've survived another day in the eternal city. The streets of Rome may be paved with stone, but they're covered in filth, danger, and despair. This is the reality of the greatest empire in the world. Marble temples glitter on the hills above, while down here in the streets, ordinary Romans wade through waste and struggle to survive. Glory, that's what they call this. Glory. Chapter 7. The baths, not what you think. After a long, exhausting day of work, you might think visiting the famous Roman baths would be a relaxing, rejuvenating experience. Movies show elegant pools, civilized conversation, and luxurious self-care. The reality, not quite. Rome's public baths are impressive architectural achievements, no question. Massive complexes with hot rooms, warm rooms, cold rooms, and bathing pools. They're heated by elaborate underground furnace systems. They're open to almost everyone for a small fee, sometimes free on holidays. And they're absolutely packed with humanity in all its unwashed glory. You pay your few copper coins and enter. The first thing that hits you is the noise. The baths are chaos. Hundreds of people shouting, splashing, laughing, arguing. Street vendors have set up inside, selling food and drinks. Musicians play badly for tips. The acoustics of the stone buildings amplify everything into a deafening roar. The smell is the next assault on your senses. Hundreds of unwashed bodies, olive oil, used instead of soap, sweat, and the sulfurous scent of the heated water create an aroma that's absolutely overwhelming. Add in the smell of food from vendors, and you've got a sensory nightmare. You head to the changing room to remove your clothes. There are no lockers, just open shelves, and sometimes attendants who watch your belongings for a tip. Theft is common. Many bathers bring nothing valuable, or they wear their money pouches even into the water. Stripping down, you realize everyone bathes naked together. Men, old and young, in one section. Women and children in another. No swimsuits exist. Bodies of every size, age, and level of fitness are on full display. Romans aren't particularly modest about nudity, but the sheer crowding makes it uncomfortable. You move into the caldarium, the hot room. It's heated to extreme temperatures by the underground furnace system. Sweat pours off you immediately. The room is packed with bodies, steam rising in clouds. Someone's elbow jabs your ribs. Another person steps on your foot. Personal space is not a concept here. The bathing process doesn't involve soap and water like you're imagining. Instead, you cover yourself with olive oil. Let your pores open in the heat. Then use a curved metal tool called a strigil to scrape the oil, sweat, and dirt off your skin. It's not particularly pleasant, and it doesn't really get you clean by modern standards. But it's what Romans do. The pools themselves are not clean. Hundreds of people cycle through them daily. The water is changed infrequently. There's no chlorine, no filtration. People sweat in it, urinate in it, yes, really, and worse. Skin diseases, fungal infections, and other ailments spread easily through the baths. That rash you've had for weeks, you probably got it here, and you'll probably pass it to someone else today. Despite the health hazards, you